Chapter 781. These officials fawned upon the rich and powerful. When he turned around, his gaze turned cold again. With Lin Che on his arm, they walked into the middle of the hall solemnly. Everyone could not help but glance even more frequently at Lin Che, assessing the woman who had conquered this emperor of a man. They were momentarily in awe of her appearance. However, if it were mere appearances that could evoke Gu Jingze's liking, that would be too shallow. Everyone was still wondering what ability this woman had to actually capture this steel-like man. However, it was indisputable that Gu Jingze had especially prolonged the banquet. He was not one to attend gatherings after a shareholders' meeting, but he had unexpectedly made an appearance at the shareholders' gathering. He did all of this without exception because of this woman. He simply wanted everyone to know about her existence and to know that she was his wife. Furthermore, he valued his wife very much. Lin Che was none other than the formal madam of the Gu family. Her son was also the formal grandson of the Gu family. Everyone knew that by introducing the child to the shareholders, he was beginning to forge a path for the child early on. The child was likely to be the next prominent figure of the Gu family, so of course, they were much more eager to flatter the mother of the child, Lin Che. Under the watchful gazes of these top executives of the Gu industries, Lin Che saw that some of them already had heads full of white hair. She more or less felt slightly embarrassed seeing as she still had great respect for her elders. However, beside her, Gu Jingze held her hand as if no one else was around and whispered into her ear, "You don't have to feel uncomfortable about this. This is Gu Tiansheng. He's a person who bends with the wind. He's bowing to you now but he may bow to someone else tomorrow too. When it comes to someone like this, you don't have to listen to him even if he kneels to you, so you should just enjoy it." Lin Che immediately turned speechless. When outsiders looked at them, they felt that the two of them were being affectionate in front of everyone else. However, they did not know that Gu Jingze was actually giving Lin Che guidance. After hearing this, Lin Che looked at the people in this room again and thought that she was definitely not filming a movie or a television series right now. This was real. All these people were actual tycoons and actual shareholders in the Gu family. The fact that they could get to where they were now meant that they were not who they seemed to be on the surface. Although they bore benevolent and kind countenances, there was no way of knowing at all how they would plot and scheme behind her back. She could no longer judge them by their appearances. However, she ultimately still felt a little unaccustomed to this. After all, she had only ever acted in scenes involving high society such as this one, but today, she was experiencing this in reality. She instinctively began to admire the man beside her. He was probably the youngest in this room. Every other shareholder present was older than Gu Jingze. However, all of these people showed deep respect in front of him. They sincerely acknowledged their allegiance to him and expressed trust in him. They did not doubt his capabilities at all because of Gu Jingze's age but instead, feared his every gaze. It was obvious that Gu Jingze was truly very capable, that was why each and every one of these old foxes was beholden to him. To be honest, she could already tell from looking at Gu Jingze like this that he maintained the air of a king from the beginning to the end. He looked at everyone with a distant gaze and kept a moderate distance. Even though he was standing right here, he made them feel as if he was far away and high above. This was probably one of his innate qualities. Standing beside him, Lin Che felt that she absolutely could not lose to him. Therefore, she straightened her back and stood there smiling at people. She maintained her bearing and was not at all terribly affected by these false compliments. Everyone had initially thought Lin Che was a wild lass without a good family background. She should have been hoodwinked by flattery by now and should have lost her direction. However, they did not expect her to stand beside Gu Jingze without any sign of confusion. Although she did not have a good family background, she did not fare worse than any other rich young lady. It was apparent that she even had a more noble disposition than some rich young ladies and had a distinguished air to her. A few people said in private that Gu Jingze did not seem to look only at appearances either. They only needed to think a little to know that there was no way a sly fox like Gu Jingze would be deceived by a little lass. This woman, this Madame Gu, was definitely able to stand her ground firmly only because she had her own way of doing things. Young Luo was still watching them from afar. She wanted to go over but she felt that she had already lost the moment Gu Jingze stepped into this room with Lin Che. She did not want to step any closer and humiliate herself. Just then, Yun Kuoshan walked towards her from the side. He had entered into an agreement with Gu Jingze and collaborated with him for 2 years. In these 2 years, he had also bought shares in Gu Industries and became one of the shareholders of Gu Industries. Therefore, he was also here to attend the shareholders' meeting today. He looked at Yun Luo. Why are you standing here? Yun Luo lowered her head sadly. She fidgeted with the champagne glass with her slender and weak fingers. Where else can I go? Did her father still think that she had not been embarrassed enough? The entire Gu Industries had seen her bring Mu Wanqing here today, but Mu Wanqing had left her behind just because she had seen Lin Che. What was she to do now? Initially, everyone had even thought that her relationship with Mu Wanqing was great and that they were like mother and daughter. Mu Wanqing doted on her and treated her like her own daughter-in-law. She did not know how they would mock her behind her back now. Everything had been mere speculation at first, but now, they could totally say that Mu Wanqing liked Miss Yun. Still, Miss Yun was simply translucent when Lin Che was around. In the end, she had still been defeated by Lin Che the moment she appeared. There was not even a chance for her to retaliate at all. Yun Kuoshan looked at his own daughter and truly did not know what to say about her. You're too fragile. How can you beat Lin Che like this? Look at how easy-mannered Lin Che is. Then take a look at yourself. Luo, you must buck up now. However, Yun Luo looked in front at Gu Jingze and Lin Che standing together. She suddenly felt that they were a perfect match. She had always lacked confidence. Looking at Lin Che now, although she knew that Lin Che was just a wild lass without a good family background, she still could not help but feel that she possessed such grandeur. She truly did not seem like someone without a good family background at all. Perhaps she was good at acting and was better at putting up a facade. But even if it was a pretense, her pretense was awe-inspiring. But when she turned her gaze on herself, she had absolutely nothing. Yun Kuoshan said, think about this clearly. If you continue being like this, Gu Jingze will really be hers. Humph, I'll see if you regret it then. Yun Kuoshan looked at these top executives who were so adept at fawning upon the rich and powerful. These people go whichever way the wind blows and really have no backbone at all. The moment they saw Gu Jingze bring a woman with him, they immediately started flattering this woman. Yun Luo had realized it long ago as well. The way these top executives treated Lin Che reminded her of how Qin Hao had behaved previously. Chapter 782. Marrying this woman was truly worth it. Yun Kuoshan said, aren't you envious at all? If you were the one standing there, these people would be even more respectful towards you than they are towards her. Of course, Yun Luo was envious. Previously, everyone had said that Gu Jingze treated her well. She felt as if her pride had been fully satisfied by everyone's envious gazes. Eventually, she truly thought that Gu Jingze doted on her immensely. For this reason, outsiders became even more respectful towards her and fearful of her as well. Their compliments blew upon her like a breeze. From a young age, she had never received so much attention from others. Now, she truly felt that everyone treated her like the sun and revolved around her all day just because Gu Jingze stood beside her. She felt even more envious of Lin Che, especially when she saw these wealthy people fawning over Lin Che because of Gu Jingze as well. They themselves were privileged and unrestrained, to begin with. After some time, Gu Jingze said to Lin Che, let the mother bring the child in. Lin Che's heart froze. She looked into Gu Jingze's eyes and nodded her head. Before long, she saw Qin Hao leave Gu Xinian at the door. Lin Che quickly went to Gu Xinian and held his hand. Good boy, we'll finish soon. We're just meeting a few uncles and grandfathers. Gu Xinian nodded. Lin Che pulled him into the room, but he was not at all fearful. Gu Jingze slowly walked towards them as well. He looked at her and his son and suddenly smiled in contentment. He glanced meaningfully at Lin Che before taking Gu Xinian's other hand into his own. Lin Che gazed at him and genuinely felt for a moment that the three of them seemed like a family of three. Furthermore, this father was especially handsome as well. Today, Gu Xinian had especially worn a suit and looked particularly like a young gentleman. Gu Jingze was also dressed in a suit that was about the same color. The two of them held hands and really looked as if they were wearing matching outfits. However, their matching outfits were slightly too formal. Lin Che felt the instinctive urge to laugh, but the feeling the father and son gave off together was indeed very different. A sense of pride welled up in Lin Che's heart. Her husband and her son were beautiful men who were rare in this world. If the two of them went out on the streets, they would charm the hearts of so many young ladies. Everyone had already seen them. As they looked at the family of three standing together, they could not help but sigh in admiration. They looked really good. Parents who had beautiful appearances would give birth to extraordinary children too. The three of them would definitely be the scenery wherever they went. People were extremely delighted. The child was making his first appearance, so everyone would definitely be very critical of him. By appearance alone, he was not an ordinary child. They thought to themselves that it was no wonder Gu Jingze looked upon him so favorably. First of all, he was not at all fearful even on a great occasion like this. From this, they knew that he was no ordinary person. If it was a 3-year-old child from an ordinary family, he would have probably urinated himself out of fear. Gu Jingze stood in the center of the room. He smiled and raised his wine glass before saying to everyone, "This is my son, Gu Xinian. I hope that everyone can still nurture and guide him with me in the future. I'll be troubling everyone to help me." Everyone quickly raised their wine glasses. "You flatter us. This is something we ought to do." Before downing the wine in their glasses, everyone glanced meaningfully at the child. By being born in the Gu family, he was blessed by heaven from a young age. However, this was not an honor that they could covet. After all, there was only one Gu family. They did not typically admire the Gu family to this extent. But when they saw a child attend such an event at such a young age, they could not help but sigh with emotion. Whoever said that heaven was fair? How was this fair? His starting point was already different. Gu Jingze did not stay long either. He had never been a showy person and merely brought Gu Xinian here to make an appearance. Afterward, he carried Gu Xinian in his arms in front of everyone and said to him, "Let's go. I'll take you and your mother out of here. We'll arrive home very soon." Gu Xinian nodded. He behaved very appropriately in the present circumstances and did not say anything further. Gu Jingze looked at Gu Xinian in satisfaction. He secretly praised the child for being intelligent indeed. Lin Che was still wondering why Gu Xinian, who was usually so troublesome, was instead so obedient today. It was only when Gu Xinian set foot on the ground that she asked, "Are you cooking up some ideas in your head again?" Gu Xinian looked at Lin Che. The longer the hair, the shorter the wit. Mother, these people will determine whether or not I will be able to support you in the future. Of course, I can't mess around in front of them." Lin Che said, "You're so utilitarian at such a young age." "Of course, I must be more utilitarian since I bear the responsibility of supporting my mother and my wife. Otherwise, how else can I let you live the good life?" Lin Che smacked him on the head. Gu Xinian said, Hey, if you want to hit me, don't hit my head. Who else will you depend on to support you if I turn into a fool because of your beatings?" "Ha, I have money to support myself in my old age. Who needs you to support me?" Gu Xinian looked at Gu Xinian. "Just focus on supporting your wife. I'll support my own wife." While speaking, Gu Jingze quietly put his arm around her shoulders and tilted his head to look at her. He had never thought that he would see a scene like this where he had a wife and a son. But right now, he suddenly felt contentment that he had never felt before. He had never had on his agenda any plans of being a father. However, he suddenly looked forward immensely to fulfilling his role as a father. He was very grateful to Lin Che for giving birth to such an intelligent and beautiful son. Although the child was very difficult to deal with, Gu Jingze ultimately felt very proud when he took him out. He pulled Lin Che to him and pressed a kiss to her cheek. Surprised by the sudden and unexpected kiss, Lin Che covered her cheek and turned her head. "Hey, what are you doing?" Gu Jingze said, "There's no doubt that he has our genes. First of all, I think that this lad will have no fear of being teased when he goes out in the future. He's probably considered quite handsome." Lin Che asked, "What nonsense are you saying?" Gu Jingze said lowly into her ear, "It's nothing. I just think that you're great." Lin Che was even more confused about what he meant, but Gu Jingze did not say anything further. Gu Jingze felt that he was very lucky to be with Lin Che. After discovering this piece of uncut jade, everything that came to him afterward was a surprise. He wondered where this woman's magical powers came from. She had all the luck in the world. Now, even the child she had given birth to was such a dear. She could not help but sigh in admiration at the fact that he had truly married the right person. There was no way he could have predicted that this would have happened today when he had just married her back then. Young Kuoshin had left first out of anger at seeing that family of three. His action of bringing the child here spoke for itself. He was acknowledging the child's status and announcing to everyone that this child would be the successor of the Gu family in the future. However, young Luo did not leave. Images of the beautiful family of three that she had seen earlier kept appearing in her mind. The picture of them holding hands was so harmonious and so beautiful that she felt envious from the bottom of her heart. She was envious of the woman who could give birth to his child. With Gu Jingze's genes, the child she gave birth to was so adorable, so beautiful, and had Gu Jingze's pretty eyes. Chapter 783. Miss Yun is surely not as good as Madam. She was envious of the woman who could give birth to his child. With Gu Jingze's genes, the child she gave birth to was so adorable, so beautiful, and had Gu Jingze's pretty eyes. While Gu Jingze was standing in the corridor, young Luo walked towards him and looked at Gu Jingze cautiously. "Jingze, I apologize for coming here with Auntie out of the blue today." Gu Jingze glanced meaningfully at young Luo. Seeing that her face was deathly pale, he frowned and asked, "Are you having problems with your heart?" As he had been studying her heart condition for a long time, he was very sensitive about her illness. Young Luo froze. When she sensed that Gu Jingze was still worried about her, her heart immediately bloomed in happiness. Young Luo quickly said, "No, I'm just a little tired. I'll take my medicine and go back in a while." Since your body isn't in good condition, don't keep going out and walking around. I'll get the doctor to visit you later. The results of the study involving you will be out soon. Don't be too worried. Gu Jingze was not a person to concede defeat. After helping her for such a long time and seeing that success was near, he hoped that the study would succeed and allow young Luo to recover completely. Only then, the past 2 years would not have been a waste. If they failed, he would feel very frustrated. Young Luo looked down tactfully. "To be honest, I did not harbor high hopes for this. I just thought that I would live one day at a time." "Young Luo, your father genuinely wants you to recover. He spent a sizable amount of money on you too. You should know this as well. Stop saying such disheartening things." However, young Luo looked at Gu Jingze quietly. "Jingze, how about you? Do you hope that I can recover?" Gu Jingze smiled. "Of course, I put a lot of effort into this study as well." Although he had spoken very vaguely, these words were more than enough for young Luo. Before young Luo met Gu Jingze, she had never thought that she would be noticed one day. Furthermore, she had also never expected to meet such a man. Since birth, she had a congenital heart condition. She could not move and could not walk. There were many things that she could not do at all. Her family had protected her so well that she rarely stepped out of the house and stayed at home all day in M Nation. When her grandfather suddenly told her to go to C Nation for treatment, she obediently agreed. However, she had never harbored any hopes. Nevertheless, she did not expect to meet a man that she would not forget for the rest of her life. Gu Jingze. She discovered for the first time that there was a man more powerful than her father on earth. It was also because of Gu Jingze that she gained exposure in various countries as the young miss of the Yun family. She started receiving attention. It made her feel like she was on cloud 9. Every day, it was as if she was about to fly in the air. Despite all this, it was nevertheless this extraordinary man who made her feel even happier. His concern for her was heartwarming to her. She started to have hopes for her own life. She felt that there was absolutely nothing in this world that this man could not do. However, she had forgotten that he had a wife. Before this, word on the street was that his wife had been sent abroad only because she was completely useless and the Gu family did not approve at all of their relationship. She had initially thought that she could replace his wife. She had initially thought that he treated her very well. Even though he was indeed very cold towards her and did not permit her to touch him, it was just a part of his personality. It was understandable for a person in such a high position to have his own idiosyncrasies. Until Lin Che's arrival shattered all of her fantasies. Today, she felt terribly disappointed and extremely embarrassed. However, the fact that Gu Jingze still cared about her health was enough to satisfy her. Lastly, Gu Jingze nodded at her and continued walking outside. Sensing the situation, Yun Luo followed suit and walked briskly. She caught up to him intending to walk out together with him. When they reached the entrance, Lin Che walked in. Gu Jingze, you should hurry up. All right, I'm coming. As Lin Che was hastening him, Gu Jingze could only walk ahead and go to Lin Che's side quickly. Lin Che immediately saw Yun Luo trailing behind him. Had the two of them been talking earlier? Lin Che scoffed and glared unhappily at Gu Jingze. She believed that no woman would be able to even touch Gu Jingze since his body had a natural aversion to them which prohibited them from touching him. However, she definitely felt unhappy when he interacted with other women. This was especially so given that Yun Luo looked extremely fragile. However, Lin Che did not find her fragility likable. Perhaps Lin Che was biased, but she could not help but feel that Yun Luo's fragility was very fake and very detestable. Lin Che rolled her eyes at him openly. He caught her in the act with his astute eyes. Gu Jingze pulled her by the hand. That's enough. Let's go. Lin Che sneakily shrugged his hand off. Frowning, she said unhappily, don't pull me. Why did you pull me? Although her voice was very low, Gu Jingze had already seen the way she had acted like a little woman. Gu Jingze smiled with his lips pursed and immediately caught up with Lin Che. What are you running for? Come back, he said sternly. Lin Che refused to turn around and continued walking straight ahead. Lin Che, this stubborn woman really knew no boundaries. Which woman would dare to shrug him off and ignore his words like this? But she was just impossible to resist. Even though he was indeed angry, he could not really be harsh on her. He caught up with her as he ultimately walked at a much faster speed. He lifted her up in one swift motion and used the momentum to place her onto his shoulder. Lin Che was shocked. She only registered the inappropriateness of the situation after she had been slung over his shoulder. This was even more so given the direction she was facing. The moment she raised her head, she saw Yun Luo opposite her. Yun Luo was still standing over there looking at them in surprise. Hey, Gu Jingze, they were still in his company. How could he make such a scene here? She slapped him on the back to stop him from moving. But of course, Gu Jingze refused to comply and slapped her butt without hesitation. So now you call me. Why were you running just now? I'll slap your butt rotten if you dare to run from me again. Lin Che's face turned red. She sensed that the company's employees all saw them and were currently suppressing their urge to laugh. How embarrassing. She was a grown woman but she was still being smacked on the butt. When Gu Jingze was being immature, he was truly ridiculously so. However, while the others were still looking at them with hints of smiles, Yun Luo could not bring herself to smile. It was her first time seeing Gu Jingze interact with someone like this. He was so genuine and had completely stopped putting on airs. He was so strong. He had lifted Lin Che up so effortlessly and was even carrying her and joking around with her. The crucial thing was that he had actually stopped putting on airs for Lin Che. Yun Luo quickly averted her gaze when Lin Che looked at her. In her panic, she hastily walked down another flight of stairs and left. The company employees were demonstrably looking on. They watched Yun Luo leave before watching Gu Jingze leave with Lin Che. They instinctively smiled and said, "Look at Miss Yun. She ran away with her tail between her legs, right? Who was the one who said before that President Gu treated her well? The person has definitely been proven wrong." Precisely. The moment Madam came back, the Yun family was immediately ignored. I think President Gu's feelings for Madam are sincere. It's just that Madam's family background pales in comparison to Miss Yun's. Still, she's better than Miss Yun in every other aspect, her looks, her figure, and even the way she carries herself. Although Miss Yun is a well-bred young lady, she doesn't carry herself as well as Madame Gu. Chapter 784. She was completely unable to resist him. Precisely. Today, I even saw her come to the shareholders' meeting with the mistress of the Gu family. But I heard the staff from President Gu's office say that when Ma'am saw Madame Gu, she immediately cried so awfully. She said that she missed her so much and felt so sorry that she did not bring her home earlier. Really, I can't believe she actually cried. In everyone's eyes, Ma'am was akin to a queen. But now, she had unexpectedly cried in front of Lin Che. It seemed that everything was going awry for Miss Yun at the moment. In the past, she had had some presence by Gu Jingze's side when his wife was absent. Now that his wife was back, the little presence that she had also vanished without a trace. Now, everyone knew that Madame Gu remained the most special person to Gu Jingze. It was self-evident from the way President Gu interacted with Madame Gu. Just like that, Gu Jingze took Lin Che back home. When they arrived, Gu Jingze continued carrying Lin Che in the house. Lin Che quickly kicked and hit him. Let go of me. Farron is still around. You don't be like this. However, Gu Jingze said bluntly, don't worry. Mu Farron took her daughter out to shop. They're not back yet. He had even found out about this. Gu Jingze went all the way up the stairs with Lin Che on his shoulder. After going in, he first pressed Lin Che down onto the bed. Oh, Lin Che whined. Gu Jingze looked down at her and chuckled lowly. Do you turn obedient once we're on the bed? Lin Che raised her pretty and refined eyebrows as she looked at him. You're terrible. You carried me and left just like that. Aren't you afraid that Miss Yun would get jealous of watching us from behind? Gu Jingze paused. Then, he lowered his head and nipped at the small tip of her nose. Why do I feel as if there's more of a sour smell here right now? Lin Che turned away from him and stopped him from touching her. Ha, how could I possibly dare to feel jealous? Isn't it completely normal for the great President Gu to keep one or two women outside? Especially a woman as fragile and weak as Miss Yun. If I so much as say a harsh word to her, I feel like I'm bullying her. Yet you say you're not sour. If you continue being this sour, I'm going to faint from the sour scent. Come on, turn around and let me see you. No, she was still angry. Of course, she would not turn around. Gu Jingze sought out her lips and pressed his lips to hers. However, she immediately evaded his lips deftly. Gu Jingze was left with no choice. He held her arms down and prevented her from moving again. Instead, Lin Che used her legs to block his waist. Then, she kicked one of her legs at him. Gu Jingze's eyes froze before he swiftly evaded the blow. Thereafter, he looked at her with his gaze flashing. How dare you try to kick at my groin? Are you not afraid of cutting the bloodline? When that happens, there will be no point crying. Get lost. Why should I cry if your bloodline is cut? There may not be any toads with 3 legs, but there are plenty of men with 3 legs. Lin Che deliberately emphasized the last 2 words, implicitly referring to that leg in the middle. Gu Jingze froze. He then looked down at her with a somber and very threatening gaze. She felt like she was in grave danger. He immediately tightened his hold on her arms, looked at her, and said, there are plenty of men with 3 legs. But there aren't necessarily many of them whose 3rd leg can satisfy you. I think you've forgotten my prowess because I haven't touched you in a long time. The moment Gu Jingze finished speaking, he immediately grabbed her body and started touching her. Lin Che was shocked. How mean, how mean, who wants your touches? At the speed of light, she started resisting his advances. She slapped and hit his hands and pushed him away as he leaned towards her. Gu Jingze did want to push her down and he definitely had the strength to do so. However, he did not want to hurt her by using too much strength. He did not dare to use any more force and could only let her hit him. Seeing that he had stopped moving and was letting her hit him without retaliating at all, she quickly stopped. She looked at this man who was looking at her with a slightly misty gaze. Why did you stop moving? Does it not hurt? She knew how strong he was, so she had used considerable force in hitting him. Gu Jingze said, if I didn't stop, I would have definitely hurt your slender arms and legs the moment I exerted force. How dare you hit me? Think about the number of people queuing up to be bullied by me outside. You, on the other hand, are always pushing me or hitting me all the time. He looked down and pressed his lips heavily onto her forehead. Her body was wrapped in his deeply affectionate gaze. With a voice that was as low as aging wine, he said, aren't you just banking on the fact that I dote on you and can't do anything to you? Lin Che's body went weak at hearing his magnetic voice and under his sensual gaze. She quickly turned her face away. Yes, Now, you dote on me. But if you dote on someone else in the future, I'll have to move aside, right? Don't talk nonsense. He looked down, licked her lips, and gazed at her deeply. I haven't opened up your body completely yet. Of course, I'm not interested in playing with anyone else. I think your body alone is enough for me to open up for the rest of my life. As he said this, he kissed her face lightly inch by inch. When he moved his lips downward, he deliberately left a trail of breaths on her face. She could only close her eyes, feeling like a wooden puppet that was being controlled by him. She was so stiff that she could not move around herself and could only follow his ministrations. His lips slid to her neck. She whined and pushed him while mumbling, "No." Gu Jingze drew in a breath. He had already instinctively reached under her clothes from below and was fondling her soft body. He felt that her body really had not become flabby even after she gave birth. Her muscles were even more firm to the touch compared to before. In reality, he had told the truth. He had never thought that a woman's body could have such magical power, causing him to have no interest in any other woman. There was a persistent feeling that all of them were not as good as she was. They had no observational skills or opinions at all. With just one glance, he felt that they were just typical women who could not even compare to Lin Che's fingertips. Was he not already under her spell? Gu Jingze felt that his entire body had already tensed up. Down below, he had already hardened to an extent unimaginable to himself. It had truly been a long time since he had touched her body. Right now, a slight contact was sufficient to make him explode. But he sensed that Lin Che was reluctant. Even though she did not have much strength left to fight back, the expression on her face indeed showed that she was unwilling. He did not want her to feel unhappy at all. Therefore, he stopped regardless of everything. However, as he followed the outline of her exquisite face and held her alluring lips between his teeth, he felt the urge to swallow her whole while he nibbled on her tender and enchanting lips. Nevertheless, he ultimately released her and sighed, feeling helpless. It seemed that whenever she said something, he would willingly obey no matter what. Even if his own body told him that he should not comply, he would definitely consciously reverse his will. Chapter 785. I prefer it when you're willing. After releasing her, he jumped off the bed immediately and said to her, "Rest up first. I'll go take a shower." Thereafter, he ran into the bathroom. A while later, Lin Che heard the sound of running water. She lifted her slightly messy hair and looked in the direction of the bathroom where Gu Jingze was. She instinctively froze and had yet registered what was happening. Gu Jingze. Was he deliberately toying with her? His skills truly had not deteriorated at all after so many years. Instead, they seemed to have improved. With her lips pursed, Lin Che wondered which woman had taught him those skills. Although she knew that it was impossible since no one could touch his body even if it was there for them to touch, she still let out an involuntary sigh. Perhaps she was hopeless for being unable to withstand his slight ministrations. However, his touches truly felt amazing. His lips were so soft and his body was so sturdy. Just thinking about it made her face burn. She had really brought this upon herself. Why did she have to get involved with a man like this? She had instead put herself in a position where she was constantly unable to control herself. Just then, Gu Jingze came out of the bathroom. There was a tinge of red to his body after the cold shower. As all he was wearing was a towel around his lower half, the outline of his hips was even more obvious under the sheen of water. The water droplets delineated the contours of his body. He truly looked as perfect as the cover of a fashion magazine. But unlike those models, he did not even need any Photoshop to conceal his flaws. Every inch of his body was so perfect that no additional elements were needed. Gu Jingze had not expected Lin Che to be outside. He saw her the moment he went out. He immediately collided into her and their gazes met. It was as if the red color of a sunset glow swiftly spread across her entire face. He lowered his head and looked at her. "Why, do you want to take a look? Then come a little closer." Lin Che looked at him in embarrassment and instinctively cursed at him, "Get lost. I don't want to look." Good lord, it was really easy for him to make someone lose their ability to resist. Gu Jingze said, "Fine, fine. I want to let you see, all right." He put his arm around Lin Che's body and carried her, saying, "Come on. I'll help you wash up." Why do I need your help? I want to help you. Can't I? But. Let's go. He pulled Lin Che into the bathroom and took the tube of toothpaste for her. Then, he lifted her onto the basin counter. He looked at her and said, "Open your mouth." Lin Che looked at him in even more disbelief. "I'm not a child." "You'll always be a child in my eyes," he said while stuffing the electric toothbrush into her mouth. He looked at her and said, "Seriously. I'm waiting upon you but you're still displeased." With the toothbrush in her mouth, Lin Che moaned, "The great President Gu is waiting upon me, can't I simply be overwhelmed by the honor?" Gu Jingze smiled while looking at her. "It's nothing. Your mouth is mine, so let me brush it for you." He traced the contours of her body lightly with his fingers. "Your body is mine, so I should provide for it. It's only right that I do all of these." Get lost. Lin Che felt that he really had no qualms at all saying such shameless words now. She pushed herself off the counter so that she could wash up on her own. However, he embraced her from behind. Lin Che frowned. "How can you be so clingy? You're even more clingy than Nianian." I just want to cling to you and stick to you." From behind, he hugged her and kissed the back of her neck. Lin Che quickly begged for mercy. "Enough, enough, it itches." Hearing this, Gu Jingze stopped blowing on her neck and started biting her instead. He bit her hard and immediately created a patch of red on her skin by sucking on it. "How mean," she frantically jumped away from him. While touching the back of her neck, she said, "Why did you do that? You will leave marks." "Why, isn't that a good thing?" Gu Jingze continued, "I did it precisely for everyone else to see. I did it to prevent each and every one of them from lusting after a married woman like you." Lin Che glared at him. She turned to look at the mirror. As expected, there was a patch of red on her neck. Furthermore, it was so big. It was so obvious. Lin Che became bolder as her anger rose. She shouted furiously at Gu Jingze, You. Just you wait, I'm going to get my revenge." While shouting, she jumped to Gu Jingze's side. As he was covered only with a towel, she did not have to waste her effort removing his clothes. She aimed directly at his neck and bit down. "SS's," he hissed before seeing a large mark bloom on his neck. "This little imp, her biting hurt so much." Gu Jingze hugged her lovingly. "I'm willing to let everyone know that I belong to you, Lin Che." Lin Che was about to turn dizzy under his unwavering gaze. Why did he suddenly confess like this? She felt as if she was about to die from being overwhelmed with emotion. Gu Jingze looked down and said, "I'm very glad that I can be with you now." Lin Che felt as if she was about to be sucked into his eyes. She hastily lowered her head and did not dare to look at him. He carried her in his arms. Upon being lifted into the air all of a sudden, she could only put her arms around his neck. "Why do you always want to carry me? It's not like I don't have legs and can't walk," Lin Che grumbled. Gu Jingze rubbed his face against hers. "I want to keep hugging you just like this. I won't get sick of it no matter how many times I hug you. Even if I hug you every day, I feel like that is not enough." Lin Che's heart started thumping again. His gaze was as deep as a whirlpool. Upon seeing it, she quickly buried her head in his neck. How despicable this man was. She smiled and placed her on the bed. Although he felt intensely uncomfortable, he still wanted to hug her to sleep. He genuinely felt blissful today. With her by his side, he felt extremely satisfied. He felt as if all the hard work he had put in had not gone to waste at all. As long as he could share all of this with her, he felt that everything he had done was worth it. The next day, Lin Che had agreed with Yu Minmin to take a look at the script together. Yu Minmin wanted Lin Che to try out filming this production as Lin Che and the production team were old partners in the thriller series, Witch's Diary, they had filmed together back then, had attained particularly stellar ratings. It had also been the hottest topic of discussion back then. However, Lin Che had yet to decide on whether she wanted to continue filming. She followed Yu Minmin to a cafe and brought Mu Feiren with her as well. The two of them paraded themselves ostentatiously about town, but no one discovered them. As both of them were wearing caps and sunglasses, even Mu Feiren was able to conceal herself. In reality, it was not that bad in Lin Che's case. After all, it had not been long after her debut. She had not been promoting for a long time either. Therefore, everyone forgot her quickly following her sudden disappearance. But Mu Feiren had been in the industry for more than 10 years and had numerous works. Even if she disappeared, for the time being, people would definitely watch her old works too. Furthermore, she was an A-list actress, so she was slightly more worried than Lin Che. The two of them went into the cafe together. Lin Che made the introductions to Yu Minmin, saying, "This is Mu Feiren. I'm sure you know her." Yu Minmin immediately smiled and welcomed her. "Of course I do. Of course, Sister Feiren, the empress of the industry. No one in the entire Sea Nation doesn't know her." Chapter 786. Even Mr. President suddenly appeared before them. Mu Feiren smiled in embarrassment. "What empress? It's just flattery from everyone. This industry is like that. Once they make you popular, you are whatever they say you are. When they stop praising you one day, you may take the greatest fall you have ever known. All of this is superficial. Ultimately, how you live depends on yourself." Yu Minmin said, "But someone who can attain the level of accomplishment that you have will at least leave a mark for generations to come. No one will forget you no matter how many years pass. Dear me, I didn't think that the two of you would become friends. But it gave me the chance to interact with Sister Feiren, an A-list actress whom I definitely wouldn't have had a chance to meet in the past." Mu Feiren smiled even wider. "After being praised by Madam President like this, I really don't know how to respond." Yu Minmin made a face. Lin Che said, "All right. Don't stand on such ceremony. I just wanted to introduce you to one another. We're all friends. It's so gross to hear you flattering each other, you know." Hearing this, Mu Feiren laughed out loud. "That's true. This is a problem of habit. I accidentally started praising you." They all started laughing before sitting down. Yu Minmin did not waste time either and immediately handed the script to Lin Che. Lin Che received the script and looked at the synopsis in front, the outline and some of the follow-up stories. Yu Minmin said, "The script is good. But Shui Yang has to take the more high-end route of filming movies. He must at least film one movie to solidify his position, so he has no choice but to give up this opportunity. I've already asked them about this. They haven't decided on the female lead. I told the director that I'm going to recommend an actress for the role. He still doesn't know that it's you. If he did, he would definitely go crazy with delight." As she read the script, Lin Che felt that the story was indeed great. "But am I really going to film a television series? I really haven't acted for many years. What are you afraid of? Your foundation is good and at the very least, you had professional training. Did you forget how to act so quickly? Go home and practice. I guarantee that you'll act better than all of them." Lin Che was about to say something again but Yu Minmin immediately cut in and said, "That's enough. Let's leave it at that. We'll go for a casting audition with the director tomorrow. Even though the casting audition probably means nothing much to you two, since you will definitely pass it, but we must still go through the motions anyway." Yu Minmin ended the discussion promptly. Lin Che immediately choked in disbelief. Was there anyone as unreasonable as her? Yu Minmin proceeded to look at Mu Feiren. "Sister Feiren, do you have any other plans?" "Me, I've already been acting for more than 10 years. I've already filmed enough. For the time being, I don't want to think about anything. I just want to rest for a bit and look after my child." Yu Minmin had a regretful expression on her face. "I was even thinking that you could come to our company if you left the management of your former company." "I don't want that. I'll be going back to Seattle soon. But since the child is here, I want to bring her around to play for a few days." Hearing this, Lin Che looked at Mu Feiren and said, "Are you still going back? In that case, won't we have to separate?" "Yes, I know that you definitely won't leave. Every night is so passionate," Mu Feiren said, covering her mouth while smiling. Lin Che felt like she had been attacked. "What passion? Isn't it you guys? You're always making noise in the room. I hear it every day, Tilda." Lin Che's face immediately turned red. She had forgotten that they were no longer in the GU residence. The soundproofing of the rooms was not as good as it was in the GU residence, so she probably could hear a lot of noise from outside too. Yu Minmin looked at Lin Che. She averted her gaze and said, "No wonder Sister Feiren wants to go back to America. It turns out that you're the ultimate culprit, but Feiren, you should get used to it too. To be honest, it's not just her first or second time being like this. As long as she's with Gu Jingze, we will definitely be the ones suffering. Mu Feiren said, precisely. I'm so envious and jealous that she has such a handsome man protecting her while I'm all alone, so I decided to just leave earlier. The two of them had begun singing the same tune instead, causing Lin Che to go completely speechless. She had always felt that these were very ordinary events. But every time they saw it happening, they always said that she and Gu Jingze were tormenting them. However, it was because they found Gu Jingze slightly frightening. If he showed any hint of affability, they were unable to withstand it. Just then, Yu Minmin's phone started vibrating. Alright, you guys go ahead, I have to go. You're in such a rush, Lin Che said. Yu Minmin blushed. I have something on later. However, Lin Che's eyes were very sharp at this moment. She looked at Yu Minmin's phone which was still vibrating. Could Mr. President be calling you? It must be. Is Mr. President going to pick you up? It was rare for Yu Minmin to become flustered. She was even stuttering as she spoke. Seriously, go back home, read your script properly, and prepare for tomorrow's audition. Move aside, move aside. Minmin, you're so nervous all of a sudden. Something must be up, hee hee. Quick, tell us honestly. Otherwise, I won't let you go so easily. Good lord, it's really nothing new. Yu Minmin was still extremely anxious. On the other side, Mu Feiren had already grabbed onto Lin Che hastily. Hey. Lin Che froze. Then, she turned around and immediately saw that none other than Gu Jingming had arrived. Mr. President had actually come here. Mu Feiren frantically stood up. It was her first time seeing Mr. President in person, so she was still slightly nervous. Gu Jingming caught sight of Lin Che and immediately smiled as he walked towards them. Yu Minmin had already hastily gone up to him. Why did you come in? I was just about to go out. It's nothing. I heard that sister-in-law is here, so I came to say hello. Gu Jingming looked at Lin Che and said, it's been a long time. Lin Che sighed in admiration as she looked at Gu Jingming. She saw him on the television all the time. He did not look any different in person, he looked as dashing and outstanding. No wonder he had always been known as the most charismatic president. Lin Che said, long time no see, Mr. President. Gu Jingze said, I wonder what magical power you have to make Jingze turn the sky and the earth upside down with you. Immediately, Lin Che felt slightly embarrassed as she looked at Gu Jingming. In the beginning, I didn't think of creating any trouble. As for what happened after that, to be honest, it wasn't something I had predicted either. Gu Jingming said, alright. You don't have to be nervous too. I wasn't questioning you either. But it hasn't been easy for you and Jingze to come this far. I hope that you two will treasure it. By the time he had finished speaking, his hand was already on Yu Minmin. Let's go. Yu Minmin turned around and said to Lin Che, then, I'll be leaving first. Remember to be punctual tomorrow. Okay. Lin Che watched Yu Minmin wave before quickly jogging to catch up with Gu Jingming. Beside her, Mu Feiren sighed. Each time I go out with you is always a hair-raising experience. Now, even Mr. President has appeared in front of me. Lin Che, outsiders think that you're just a simple small-name celebrity. They're truly blind to the truth. Lin Che said, I am indeed just a simple small-name celebrity. Chapter 787, a public display of affection by the president. You're a celebrity, but you're definitely not a simple character. Mu Feiren looked in the direction that Gu Jingming and Yu Minmin had left. Ordinary people can't meet these people even if they want to, but all of them are so deeply involved in your life. Alright, Lin Che, your life is destined to be this complicated so you can't escape it. I want to return to America on my own because I know that you will definitely stay here. Your family, friends, and your lover are here, right? Lin Che herself knew that she could not leave. Putting all else aside, Nianyan's identity was something that she had to face squarely as well. Furthermore, Gu Jingze. She sighed. Gu Jingze always said that he was weak to her. But in reality, she was the one who could not help but give in to him. Yu Minmin left with Gu Jingming. She looked at Gu Jingming and kept gazing at his eyes. She did not know why she suddenly felt that Gu Jingming had literally been stunningly handsome when he said those words to Lin Che earlier. Gu Jingming looked at Yu Minmin. Why do you keep staring at me? Yu Minmin hastily turned her head away and said with her head lowered, it's nothing, nothing. I just think that you look very good today after your new haircut. Gu Jingming looked at her. Oh, no wonder you looked at me as if you were going to swallow me whole just now. I really thought you were about to lose control when you saw me earlier. His teasing words made Yu Minmin's blush involuntarily. She glared at him and said, I definitely didn't. Gu Jingming smiled. While holding the steering wheel, he said to her, don't be anxious. We'll take our time once we get back. Yu Minmin scoffed and said, aren't we supposed to attend Shuyi's birthday party today? Oh, so you can't help yourself now? Do you want to do it once here first? How could Gu Jingming twist her words? That's not what I meant. Yu Minmin was about to go mad. Gu Jingming stopped the car. He saw that they had already arrived at the restaurant. It was a private party and Shuyi had not invited many people. It was just a friendly dinner gathering involving a few people. Seeing that the car had stopped, Yu Minmin extended her hand and was about to open the door. However, Gu Jingming immediately grabbed her hand. She turned around suspiciously only to see Gu Jingming's lips moving straight towards her. He pressed her against the car door so effortlessly. He looked appreciatively at the way Yu Minmin had been stunned by him. As if in slow motion, he slowly captured her lips in a kiss. He really could not bear to part with her breasts. Even though he knew that this was not the right place, he still needed her breasts hard. When he ended the intensely deep kiss, Yu Minmin seemed to be confused. Her eyes were half-lidded and she felt dizzy. He tidied up her clothes and said slowly and leisurely, bear with it for a while. We'll leave a little earlier later. Once it ends, we'll go home. I'll satisfy you properly then. Yu Minmin sensed that someone was staring at her from outside. The gaze was strong like a light manufactured by Shoujo. There was no way she could pretend not to see it. It was Yin Suya. She watched Yu Minmin and Gu Jingming from outside. She was squarely facing the glass window of the car and watching everything opposite her in such vivid detail. There was a frosty expression on her face as she stood there in a daze. Her gaze was so penetrating as if she was about to tear Yu Minmin's flesh apart. Yu Minmin could not help but want to engage in a silent war. What was she trying to do? Gu Jingming seemed to have realized it too. He tidied Yu Minmin's clothes and glanced up before getting out of the car. Yu Minmin followed suit as well. Gu Jingming held the small of Yu Minmin's back and looked at Yin Suya. You're here. What about Zongmu? Did he not come with you? Yin Suya wanted to smile but could not bring herself to do it. She looked at Gu Jingming. We didn't come together. He will probably be here soon. Once she was done speaking, she turned and left. Yu Minmin raised her eyebrows and looked up to ask, is she really going to get engaged to Fang Zongmu? Ever since 2 years ago, Yin Suya had gotten together with Fang Zongmu after his public confession to her. Everyone thought nothing of it since they had known each other for so many years. However, the fact that Yin Suya had previously dated Gu Jingming made it somewhat of a topic for discussion. Everyone talked about it for a long time. Fang Zongmu had always liked Yin Suya. However, Fang Zongmu had straightforwardly confessed to Yin Suya back then only because Gu Jingming had cut off all relations with Yin Suya and had said many harsh things to her. Fang Zongmu nearly even broke off his relationship with Gu Jingming because of Yin Suya. Fortunately, under the urging of Shu Yi, they ultimately mended relations. Although there were some traces of what had happened, they were ultimately good friends of many years. Everything that Yu Minmin had heard regarding this matter had come from some of the maids. Gu Jingming had not mentioned it to her. Yu Minmin watched Yin Suya go in straight. She seemed slightly unhappy. However, Gu Jingming did not bother with her either. When he saw Shu Yi coming towards him, he said, "Happy birthday. Take the bridge construction project that was awarded to your family as your birthday present. I don't have any gifts for you today." Shu Yi's expression was full of disdain. "We were awarded that project because we won the bidding. What does that have to do with you? Seriously, Minmin, you're still the nicer one. Do you have any gifts for me?" Shu Yi said, targeting Yu Minmin. However, Gu Jingming grabbed Yu Minmin's hand immediately and said, "She won't give presents to any man other than me." For a moment, Yu Minmin felt unbearably embarrassed and thought of punching Gu Jingming. Unfortunately, she knew that she definitely could not win against him, so she had no choice but to bear it. She looked up and wanted to kill him with her gaze. Shuyi found him even more unreasonable. Good gracious, good gracious. I haven't met a man as overbearing as you. You Minmin, how exactly can you tolerate someone like him? This isn't allowed and that isn't allowed either. You're basically a pet locked up in a cage. Yu Minmin could only smile dryly and glance at Gu Jingming. I tolerate it just by looking at his face. Shu Yi said, "Ha. So, you mean that it's just because he's handsome?" Gu Jingming smiled and openly put his arm around Yu Minmin. He said, "It's an honor that my wife is defeated by my good looks." He stared at Yu Minmin. "Did you really tolerate me just because I'm handsome?" He seemed to feel very pleased with himself because she found him quite handsome. Shu Yi said, "001. Someone is abusing animals here." Were they abusing single dogs? Yu Minmin said, "If I said yes, would you be happy? Or would you be unhappy?" Gu Jingming spoke into her ear, "I would be happy. But I would probably be happier if you said that it was because of my skills." What the hell? What skills? Even though it was true that his skills were not bad. Gu Jingming pulled Yu Minmin inside, ignoring Shuyi who was beside them and had been tormented for his singlehood. Thereafter, Shuyi saw Fang Zongmu walk in hurriedly. "Hey, you didn't see what happened just now. Jingming is really too much now. He's bullying me for having no girlfriend." He didn't hesitate in making a public display of affection with Yu Minmin. "Did Suya come by?" Fang Zongmu could not be bothered to listen to him and immediately asked, interrupting him. Chapter 788. Are you sending Nianian to kindergarten? Did Suya come by? Fang Zongmu could not be bothered to listen to him and immediately interrupted him by asking. "Oh, Suya, she's already inside." Fang Zongmu pushed Shuyi aside and headed straight in. With a cup in hand, Gu Jingming was sobering up inside. Behind him, Yin Suya suddenly stood up and walked in. As she looked at this narrow space, she gazed at Gu Jingming inside. Her face was deathly pale as she said, "Jingming." Gu Jingming froze for some time. Then, he looked up and turned around and saw Yin Suya. "Where is Zongmu?" Yin Suya suddenly threw herself on Gu Jingming and immediately hugged his waist from behind. "Jing's, to be honest, I don't love Fang Zongmu at all. I agreed to marry him but I regret it so much now. Jingming, I love you. I never wanted to lose you. I just want to quietly stay by your side." Her eyes were shut and her tears flowed freely from the corners of her eyes. Her arms could not stop trembling as she hugged him. Even her heart was quivering at being able to be so close to Gu Jingming again. She missed him so much. Even when the two of them were facing each other, she still missed him because she no longer knew how long it had been since she got this close to him and touched him. Gu Jingming's eyes flashed slightly like stars on a cold night. His brows were severely knit. He grabbed her hand swiftly and pushed her away forcefully. He turned around, looked at Yin Suya, and said bluntly, "Suya, that's enough. Since you're with Zongmu now, you should get along well with him. Stop entertaining foolish ideas. I've already told you that unless we are just friends, you will have to leave the club and get out of my sight." "No Jingming." Yin Suya shook her head vigorously. She did not believe that Gu Jingming would really treat her so harshly. "Jingming, have you forgotten how well we got along in the past? We separated only because of the problematic circumstances. I let you slip away. I know that I was wrong. I shouldn't have rejected you. Right now, I really regret it so much. Don't keep hurting me like this, okay?" "Yes, when I left you back then, I was very upset too. But all this has already become a thing of the past. But we can still be together. Jingming, I'm willing to give up everything as long as I have you. Even if you're no longer the president, I will still love you. When the time comes, we can live very blissful lives too and be together openly." "Are you insane?" Gu Jingming took 2 steps back in disgust. Frowning, he looked at her. "Even if we were together once, that is merely a thing of the past. If you want to throw a crazy fit, don't pull me along with you. It would be best not to let Zongmu hear these words too." He scoffed loudly and glanced at Yin Suya with distaste before walking past her. "You Jingming, you don't love Yu Minmin at all. Why do you have to remain with her?" Yin Suya shouted, her entire body trembling. Gu Jingming stopped in his tracks. It's true that I had no thoughts of being together with her at the beginning, but I'm very happy to be with her now. Yin Suya's body turned completely cold. She felt as if she had been completely soaked in cold water from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. The cold seemed to penetrate into her heart. She stood there dumbly for a long time without reacting. Until Fang Zongmu came to look for her. He looked at Yin Suya worriedly, walked towards her and enveloped her into his arms immediately. Back then, Fang Zongmu had suddenly confessed to her in public in an extremely romantic manner, and she had agreed to date him. Everyone felt that they were a match made in heaven. However, in private, some people said that Yin Suya had given up the position of the president's wife and unexpectedly ended up together with Fang Zongmu. Although he was the son of a general as well, it was an entirely different matter when one compared him to Gu Jingming. It was not as if Yin Suya had never heard these words. Even if she had not, it was not as if she could not sense it herself either. Whenever Gu Jingming and Yu Minmin went outside, they were surrounded by tens of thousands of people. They had halos over their heads wherever they went. Just looking at them, the First Lady and the General's wife elicited completely different feelings. It went without saying that Gu Jingming was backed by the Gu Industries, whose wealth rivaled that of the nation. A wealthy family with so much power immediately reduced all the other wealthy families to nothing. No matter how great Fang Zongmu was, in front of Gu Jingming was he still worth anything? Yin Suya had been feeling unhappy the entire time, especially when she saw Gu Jingming treat Yu Minmin better and better. The two of them were virtually inseparable, and Gu Jingming had even given in and yielded to Yu Minmin a few times. All of this had started after Yu Minmin's miscarriage back then. It was definitely the case that Gu Jingming was treating her better and better only because he felt guilty towards her. Otherwise, Yin Suya could not think of any other reason. Fang Zongmu caressed the back of her hands, which were cold as ice. His face was filled with worry. Suya, what exactly happened to you? Yin Suya cried as she leaned into Fang Zongmu's embrace. How am I worse than Yu Minmin in any way? Why does he treat Yu Minmin so well? Fang Zongmu froze. He hugged her and looked at her. His heart was aching terribly for her. Suya, Yu Minmin is worse than you in every way. But they're in a political marriage. It's impossible to break them up. Yin Suya looked up with her face full of tears and looked at Fang Zongmu. I know, but I don't like Yu Minmin. Even if I can't have Gu Jingming for myself, I definitely don't want Yu Minmin to attain everything he has, Zongmu. Otherwise, I won't be able to take it lying down. Fang Zongmu clenched his teeth and looked at Yin Suya. He said resolutely, I don't want you to be unhappy, Suya. Then, help me get rid of this woman Yu Minmin. I don't want her to appear in the club or in any other place that I can see. I don't want her to continue standing by Gu Jingming's side either. All else aside, Fang Zongmu was indeed enchanted by Yin Suya. He had always obeyed her every instruction. As long as it was something she wanted, he would give it to her. He looked at Yin Suya. Only after a long time did he say, okay, I'll help you. Of course, Yin Suya was touched at his words. She stood on her tiptoes and hugged his neck immediately. Zongmu, you're too good to me. He sighed while patting her back. As Yin Suya leaned against his shoulder, the only thought in her mind was why. Why was it not Gu Jingming? If Gu Jingming treated her this way, she would die without regrets. The next day, Gu Jingze brought Lin Che to select a kindergarten for Nianian first. In the car, Gu Jingming showed Lin Che several kindergartens to choose from. Qin Hao prepared these. You can take a look. In actual fact, Lin Che found all of them the same. Actually, it still depends on which one Nianian likes. If a child likes the kindergarten and finds it agreeable, only then will he have a good time there. Gu Jingze said, don't worry. Nianian will find all of them agreeable. No kindergarten dared to make Nianian feel out of place. Lin Che randomly chose one that she felt was situated closer to her house. It was an international kindergarten with fees that seemed quite high and had many foreign teachers. Lin Che thought that having a few foreign teachers would probably make him feel slightly more comfortable since he had been in contact with only foreigners since he was born. As for learning English, many people chose international schools for the sole reason of letting their children learn English from a young age. But there was no need to consider this at all in Nianian's case, as he was completely fluent in English now. Chapter 789. An important person has come to the kindergarten. Upon seeing that Lin Che was done washing up, Gu Jingze immediately instructed Qin Hao to start making preparations as well. He had already arranged for Qin Hao to inform the school in advance. For the sake of the child's safety, Gu Jingze did not tell anyone that the child was his son. He merely told Qin Hao to send someone to bribe the school with a large sum of money in exchange for someone to watch over Gu Xinian. All these arrangements were made swiftly. When they arrived, Lin Che personally brought Gu Xinian in to make an inquiry. The moment the kindergarten staff saw Lin Che, they immediately ushered them inside. The manager of the kindergarten guided Lin Che around very passionately. He said that all the lessons were taught in English, so it was guaranteed that the child's level of English would be equivalent to that of his mother tongue in a few years. Seeing that he was so enthusiastic, Lin Che knew that Gu Jingze had probably bribed the school already. However, before this, they had agreed not to tell the school Gu Xinian's identity so there would be no trouble. But Lin Che did not know what method Gu Jingze had used to make the people here so welcoming. The manager looked at Gu Xinian beside her, smiled, and said, "It must be this little boy. You have such good looks. In the future, study hard here. You'll be able to be friends with foreigners once you know English." Gu Xinian could not believe it. He looked at the manager with a cold expression and said bluntly, "Sorry. I don't have much interest in interacting with foreigners." Without hesitation, he had said these words in fluent English with an American accent. The manager's face turned dark. However, he immediately clapped and said, "So you're already so brilliant." Lin Che gave Gu Xinian a look warning him not to be so rude. She smiled and said to the manager, "We just returned from America." The manager said, "No wonder." On the contrary, he was not angry at all and he even thought that Lin Che's attitude was pretty good. After all, there had never been a family across the whole B city that had simply tossed the kindergarten a sum of 10 million for the child to be educated here, although there were wealthy businessmen who bribed the school with some money so that their children could get in. They also sponsored the school with more money so that the school would give the child better treatment. Children who could attend a high-class international school like this definitely came from pretty wealthy families. But it was still uncommon to encounter families as rich as this one. Lin Che's aura was also different from that of ordinary people. As for Gu Xinian, with one look he could tell that this child was definitely not a typical 3-year-old. He felt even more strongly that the child who was here today to join the school was absolutely extraordinary. It was a happy occasion as well for an extraordinary child to be admitted into the school. However, they had to be even more careful when dealing with the child. "Don't worry, our school is definitely one of the top international schools in B City. There is no other school more professional and warm than ours. Leave your child in our care and we will help you educate him from a young age. There will definitely be no problems and we guarantee that he won't be bullied by the other children. We will protect him well." Lin Che said hastily, No, I'm not worried about that at all." She was actually worried that he would bully the other children for no reason. After confirming the lesson timings, Lin Che left with Gu Xinian. Then, she crouched down and warned him, "If I find out that you've been bullying others in school, I definitely won't let you off. That's on the condition that there is someone here who is worthy of being bullied by me too," he said coolly after glancing inside. Gu Xinian had no choice but to remain there that day and get used to the new school. As Lin Che knew that Gu Xinian was definitely not like other children who would wail and sob, refusing to attend kindergarten, she left feeling at ease. Her only worry was that he would cause trouble at school. Gu Xinian would be truly loathsome if he caused trouble. The teachers in the kindergarten had heard long ago that an important person was here. The manager had specially told them that the family had sponsored a sum of 10 million just so the child could attend the kindergarten. The teachers had initially thought that the child would be plump and mischievous. However, they did not expect to be immediately awed upon seeing Gu Xinian. It was truly their first time seeing such a beautiful child. Furthermore, he just looked like he had some sort of unique aura. His gaze seemed so mature for someone so young. When he looked at them, it actually made them feel slightly pressured. Of course, they may have felt this way only because they had heard early on that his family was extremely wealthy. The teacher crouched down and looked at Gu Xinian. Hello, little darling. I'll be your teacher from now on. You can tell me if you need anything. Silence, Gu Jingze said. What? The teacher looked at him in surprise. Gu Jingze turned his head calmly. I said that I need silence. Was this child really 3 years old? If he was, then why was his gaze even more impactful than that of a 30-year-old man? He had an air of self-importance that was quite alarming. The teacher rushed out to inform the manager of the kindergarten. Exactly which family does this child come from? I find him so strange. The manager said, I don't know which family he's from either, but all this mystery must mean that he's from a very powerful family. Just make sure to wait upon him and fulfill his every request. Our kindergarten may have quite a few children from powerful families, but in my view, this child is the most extraordinary. Be careful with him. It's better not to offend people whom we can't afford to offend. The teacher immediately felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. He looked at the child whose beauty was such as to overthrow cities and ruin states. However, he was unexpectedly difficult to deal with. The teacher was truly stuck between a rock and a hard place. That afternoon, Gu Jingze brought Lin Che to the director for her audition. Lin Che got into the car and immediately called Yu Minmin to inform her that she had already set off. Yu Minmin said, Faster, faster. You're already so late. I know. There was just some delay because I sent Nianian to the kindergarten this morning. In the director's practice room, there was a line of people waiting to audition, extending all the way in from outside. The director was used to such a situation. Yu Minmin shoved her way in from outside. A few small-name actors did not know who she was and were about to complain about her cutting the queue. Someone who knew who she was told the rest, that's the First Lady, Yu Minmin. Only then did everyone realize that this was an influential person. It was no wonder that she was so audacious. Is she here to recommend someone for the role? If she's the one giving the recommendation, do we even have a chance at the female lead? Just then, a scoff from behind grabbed the attention of everyone. They turned around only to see a young girl with huge and expressive eyes. She said to everyone, Did you think that the director still had no one in mind? Let me tell you, the director has already chosen the actress to play the female lead. The casting audition is just a formality. Someone scoffed in disbelief, How did you know? She smiled and asked, Why do you think? Everyone looked at her mockingly. Are you trying to say that the person the director selected is you? Ha, it is actually me. No one believed her, but she was so insistent and confident in her words. I already met the director before this. The director was very satisfied with me and felt that my image and acting skills are both very good. After all, I have professional training and I had so many acting roles too. I also collaborated with the director once. The director said that the male lead this time is very likely to be Shui Yang, so he could choose a fresh actress to be the female lead to attract attention more easily. Chapter 790. The actress you're recommending to me is Lin Che. Although everyone did not really believe her, she sounded as if she was telling the truth. For a moment, she even seemed a little disbelieving. Thus, she scoffed and said, The person who just went in, Yu Minmin, came because of Shui Yang. She's definitely not here for the female lead. She raised her head haughtily. Everyone could only look at her in jealousy. They had recognized her from a few of her roles and knew that she had been the supporting female lead in many productions to make herself known. Perhaps she was really going to be the female lead this time. Gazing at the director, Yu Minmin said directly to him, Didn't I tell you that I would bring a top-notch actress today? The director was currently angry because their company had allowed Shui Yang to reject the role. His mood did not improve at all even after hearing her words now. Didn't I tell you that I already chose a female lead? I really wanted Shui Yang to be the male lead, but it's a pity that your company did not think much of our production and insisted on making Shui Yang act in some movie. Director, you must believe me, I have my reasons for doing that too. That's enough. You don't need to say anything more. I'm currently holding auditions. I've already told you that I've selected the female lead. Quote. Director, you will definitely like the actress I'm recommending for the role of the female lead. I can guarantee that she will be much better than the female lead you've chosen prior to this. You have no idea. The female lead I've chosen is extraordinarily radiant and vivacious. She has the presence of someone who can be famous. It's rare to find a beautiful woman like her in the entertainment industry now. What's more, she has undergone professional training and her acting skills are quite good too. There's no one more suitable than her. Director, don't speak too soon. I'm not boasting. The director immediately looked up and told someone to bring the actress over. Bring that girl in. A little later, that girl was called in advance. Everyone could only watch and envy as she walked in. After walking in, she waltzed to the director's side. She looked at Yu Minmin and smiled by way of greeting as well. Yu Minmin smiled faintly but remained silent. She looked at the director whose expression was completely unfathomable. The director said, "Take a look. Isn't she good enough to exchange lines with your company's Shui Yang?" "Humph, you still don't want your company's Shui Yang to act in this?" "Shui Yang's popularity would definitely skyrocket if he joined my production with these creative directors too, but you don't believe it." Yu Minmin shook her head and looked at the girl. She was indeed quite good looking. She did not look like those web celebrities and had a very distinct face. Yu Minmin said, "The person I'm recommending to you is better than this girl." The director did not believe her and laughed out loud. The girl had also sensed that something was amiss. She told the director, "Director, what's going on here?" The director assured her and said, "Don't worry. It's just a slight disagreement." Yu Minmin immediately said, "She'll be here in no time. You'll know when you see her." The director still did not believe her. The girl had roughly understood the situation and glared fiercely in Yu Minmin's direction. She scoffed and said, "Sister Yu, are you trying to end my career and take away my resources?" Yu Minmin merely glanced at this rookie actress. "If I'm able to take them from you, that's my capability too. Roles are never snatched. Understand, newbie?" Just then, Yu Minmin's phone started ringing again. It was a call from Lin Che. "Are you here or not?" Yu Minmin asked. I'm here. I'm already downstairs." "All right, come up quickly." Yu Minmin put down the phone and said, "All right. She's here." The director looked at Yu Minmin in slight suspicion. He kept feeling as if she were deliberately making things mysterious. Lin Che arrived after many difficulties. She slammed the car door and hastily walked in, ignoring Gu Jingze who was in the car. The people at the entrance watched Lin Che shove her way in since she was in a rush and frowned instinctively. "What are you rushing for? Don't you see that all of us are waiting?" Lin Che said, "Sorry. I'm a little late. Let me go in. Someone's waiting for me." Everyone felt even more furious when they looked at her. "You think you're so great because you drive a luxury car?" "Humph," someone said unhappily. Lin Che smiled and ignored her. She made her way through the crowd and went in directly. Yu Minmin had been waiting at the entrance and hastily went to receive Lin Che when she saw her. "The director has been waiting for so long. Come on. The role was nearly given to someone else. I've been dawdling inside for a long time." Inside, the rookie actress was still saying, "Director, how can you do something like this? You can't let someone else have the role just because you're on good relations with them. Didn't we agree to this?" Just then, the door opened and Yu Minmin walked in directly, pulling someone with her. With one look, the director saw that the person who came in was dressed casually. She was dressed in a pair of skinny jeans and a crop top, accentuating her long legs and her exquisite figure. Her face was still as youthful and pretty as it had been before. Even after a few years had passed, time seemed to have stopped on her face and she still seemed like a warm breeze blowing. Her face, which used to be alluring, now had a hint of likable freshness. Her name had become known across the entire region by mere means of her unique aura. Lin Che stood there, frozen. She smiled and looked at the director. "Director, long time no see." Lin Che." The director looked at her in pleasant surprise and hastily walked towards her. Meanwhile, the newbie actress in the back looked at Lin Che in front of her and had an undeniably unpleasant expression on her face. Regardless of who she was, her looks alone and her aura was enough to make her feel inferior. It went without saying that the director's words, Lin Che, immediately triggered some of her memories. Had Lin Che actually returned? The director was also looking at Lin Che and assessing her instinctively. He was so excited that he nearly could not speak. The person you said you would recommend to me earlier was her?" the director asked. Lin Che was slightly embarrassed by his enthusiasm. "Why, did Minmin say something about me?" Yu Minmin smiled with her lips pressed together. She nodded at him and said, I was referring to her. The director immediately slapped his head and complained to Yu Minmin, why didn't you just tell me right away? Why did you keep me in suspense? Yu Minmin followed suit and grumbled, I only did it because you kept saying that we were ingrates for refusing to let Shui Yang join your television series. We took Shui Yang off the production only because we were thinking of giving you a much better option. What do you think? Do you want this huge present? If you don't want it, I'm taking it away. Yu Minmin started to act coy and even pretended to pull Lin Che away. Hey, hey. Enough. I'm in the wrong, alright. The director looked at Lin Che. Be good. If I had known earlier that it was you, I wouldn't have had to hold auditions today. Lin Che said, I feel truly overwhelmed by your affirmation of me. I was even thinking to myself that perhaps no one would give a hoot about me when I returned. I will truly be grateful if you're willing to take me in. No way. It's true that no one would know you if you didn't come back. But as long as you make a comeback, no one else is capable of vying with you. The director was no fool either. First of all, he had indeed liked Lin Che's image and acting skills all along. Second, he understood the implications of this production being Lin Che's first television series for her comeback. It meant that if the television series did well, it would definitely blow up in popularity.